Hey, welcome back to Mix Together. There's a link below if you haven't downloaded the tracks yet and you would like them for free. Check that out, homestudiocorner.com/MT. Up to now, we have messed with drums. In the last video, we did bass and guitars. Feeling pretty good. We didn't get to the lead guitar, and there's a couple of things we didn't get to. We need to get to the vocals and background vocals. I'm going to kind of jump around here and try to address those in addition to our mix bus. Now, in the past, I've said, and I've done, let's get a static mix, no plugins, and then let's put our mix bus processing on the master fader and then work backwards from there. The idea of doing a lot of work into that mix bus compressor, that's going to inform some of the decisions you make. The problem is, the way I like to mix is pretty subtractive and fairly hands-off. You've seen that to now. I'll boost some frequencies, but I also like to do some cutting, getting rid of things. So usually, once I've done a round of EQ, even just EQ, the mix is a little bit quieter, which means there's less track going into the mix bus compressor, which means it could be not compressing at all by the time I'm done EQing, which essentially undoes all the work we did to set up the mix bus compressor anyway. So I've kind of come full circle to where I'll get to this point in the mix or even later before I start working on my mix bus. So if you recall from the last video, we essentially have our instrumental section done. Feeling good. Still got to figure out that cymbal ride thing that's super loud. We'll figure out how to fix that later because that's a little too loud. But it's feeling good. At this point, when this sounds good, I'm happier with throwing a compressor on it. Good rule of thumb with compression: if you're unhappy with the tone, compressing it will probably just make you more unhappy. So if there's like some obvious EQ stuff that needs to happen, a lot of times I'll EQ it first, then do compression. So that's essentially what's happening here. I've had to do some EQ and some work on the overall mix, and now I'm doing my mix compression. There are many ways to think about it. I don't think anyone's right or wrong. This is currently what I'm doing, and it's working well for me. Feel free to add your mix bus compressor earlier if and you want to. So I'm using this one, which is kind of an SSL style EQ, and I like to use the 30 millisecond attack. The 100 millisecond release, 2-to-1 ratio. Nothing crazy here. I just want it to kiss the mix a little bit, and the important part is the attack time. We're compressing the entire mix. So if we go down here with a 1 millisecond attack, that could work, and I'm sure there are mixers who do that. I found it just gets too aggressive too quickly. I like to leave myself some room, let some of those transients through, and then everything else feels nice. I've done this whenever I use a compressor like this. This is the attack and release settings that I use. I maybe go to auto. I just don't remember how that works. So I usually go here, 30 millisecond attack, 0.1, which is it's measured in seconds, so that's a 100 millisecond release, and 2-to-1 ratio, maybe 4-to-1 if I want to get aggressive, but 2-to-1 feels good to me. And then just adjust the threshold until I'm getting, 1 to 3 dB of gain reduction, nothing crazy. And then I might adjust the makeup gain a little bit to make up for some of that volume I've lost. So let's set that one now. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. The plugin's not on. The entire plugin was off. That's why the needle wasn't moving. Let's try that again. So that's the kind of thing on a YouTube video like this. I don't even know how well that's going to come across, but I just kept adjusting and listening and turning it on and off. First, to make sure that I was having this roughly the same volume before and after. So I used adjusting the makeup gain to make it around the same volume with and without compression, and then comparing. And I've had mixes where this compressor is hitting up around here and it feels great. This one, with just that quote unquote little amount of compression, it was too much pumping. I could hear the cymbals, the kick drum's pretty loud in this mix, and I could hear the cymbals really pumping. I didn't like that. So I brought it down to where it's just barely clipping the needle, and that felt better to me overall. So here it is without compression, then I'll click it on. Usually with this kind of compression, what I hear is just the low end tightens up a little bit. The bass and the kick drum feel a little more contained. Everything else kind of sounds the same. Does that make sense? So there's not a lot of pumping, not a lot of breathing, and it sounds roughly the same volume-wise with or without the compressor. And that feels good to me. I'm going to turn that off. Now I do have an EQ engaged here on the mix bus. I don't feel the need to use it. It's just there in case I need it. A lot of times what I may do is something like this. If overall by the end of the mix it just feels a little bright or a little dull, I'll just adjust this shelf. Same thing with this lower shelf as an overall shaping of the entire mix. But for now, I don't think it needs it. I'm just going to dive in and let it go. You may have noticed this multi-band compressor here. There was a season where I would put a 3-band multi-band compressor on my mix bus. I've kind of stopped doing that, so I'm going to remove that. It was fine, but I just didn't love the result, so we're going to leave it off here. All right, so now that we've done our mix bus compression, what next? Well, we've got lead vocals left, we've got lead guitar, and we've got background vocals. Let's get this lead guitar handled first. It's 2 tracks of lead guitar. One main one and another one comes in to play like a harmony above it. I've done no processing to it yet, so let's just see kind of what it sounds like in the mix. So you may have noticed, I noticed this at the end of the last video, I've used 0 effects so far as reverb and things like that go. I think this is a prime candidate for some spring reverb. So I've got a spring reverb set up in my session. I'm just going to click this on and send it to it. So now I want to know, I love that reverb. It's not going to be terribly heard in the mix, maybe a couple of the higher notes while it's holding out. But now what I really want to try is a really fast attack compressor that's going to snap it down and let go. So he's playing a lot of fast notes, especially towards the middle, and I want to compress it just so I hear every note, but I need a compressor that moves quickly. This is a compressor that moves quickly, like an 1176. The slowest attack time is 0.8 milliseconds. 0.02 on the other end, if this is accurate, I assume it is. And then the release time is at 50 milliseconds, so that's fine. So I'm going to try to do this and just see what it does to the tone of the guitar. I love compression on a lead guitar because it just does. Usually lead guitars are used to playing in a band where they've got to cut through an entire band using just their amps and their pedals, right? They typically don't have a sound guy who's riding the fader up, so they just have to cut through. So their lead tone is usually really harsh in a good way, like in a way that cuts through the mix. Well, we don't necessarily need that because we can make room for it in our mix. So this compression, while it's technically not an EQ, it does actually darken up the tone a little bit and makes it just feel a lot better. If we listen to it in the mix, it should just sit a lot better with just the compression. So here's something interesting. I was boosting this EQ down at 360 hertz because I thought I was going to want to cut it. So I was boosting it to hear what it sounded like so that I could then cut, but I actually liked the sound of it boosted. More and more I'm finding 360 on certain things can sound delightful when you boost it. Here's it by itself. That's delightful. So I'm going to boost that. It's like 4 dB boost there, which also helps with, one thing I noticed with the compression, there's a little bit of sharpness on just the transients of the notes. That makes it feel a little bright in spots. Turning that up a little bit will help cover those a little bit, so it'll feel even warmer than it did before. So here's our guitar without any processing on it, right here. And now add a little reverb, a little EQ, a little compression. Man, that's good. Sorry if my mic was muted just then. I can't remember if it was. I just literally copied those settings over to the second guitar. The harmony part that comes in sounds delightful to me. I'm going to listen to it in the mix, but I'm pretty happy with that. Man, this song rocks my face off. Love that solo. Anytime I've tried to do like a harmony solo, it just sounds stupid and cheesy. But this one... so good. One thing I'm going to do just preemptively is maybe take off a little more low end on these. Just using the high pass filter, just in case there's a little boominess there. Yeah, I think that's fine. Sometimes these compressors, when they're working hard, they bring out a little bit of, if there was something at 60 hertz just in the recording, it can come out and make it feel a little full, but that feels good to me. Okay, so we've got our lead guitar. Next up, you'd think we go to lead vocal. I'm going to save that till last. I want to mix the lead vocal with everything else present, so we're going to focus our attention here on these background vocals. All we've done so far is pan them left and right and routed them to our background vocal bus. So let's see what we got here.
You're not alone.
All right, first impression, they're just quiet. Let's turn them up.
You're not alone.
Okay.
Let me help you.
Some pops and clicks in the audio, that shouldn't come through. Here's how I like to treat background vocals. What's the best way to show this to you? Let me do it with just a normal EQ for a second. Just the standard old EQ. And I like to just go big, wide cut. So just a big, wide cut.
You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone.
The idea here is just to let it be some crispiness in the top end, not too thin, but just no mid-range to interfere with all the guitars and bass and vocals that'll be happening.
You're not alone.
Great. Now let's roll off the extra low end, just in case it's there. And let's just see what this compressor does. We're actually compressing before the EQ so we get some full signal into the compressor.
You're not alone.
Kind of like that.
You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone.
All right, that feels pretty good. Sorry, if you hear like banging and hammering in the background, I've got people here working on my kitchen, so sorry about that, but I must, the show must go on.
Not alone.
All right, I don't know what happened there. This one cut off. Might just be an error, but I'm going to cut it here and fade it because it's making a popping sound.
Alone.
Should be fine. What I'll do here, it's unbalanced now, so I've got 2 lefts and 1 right. So I'll take this right track, and we will just we'll just automate this one to go to the middle. I'm not sure why. I could fly something around. This will be just as easy. I don't think it'll make a big difference. So we'll just automate the panning on this one track to go to the middle for this one phrase, and that should work just fine. Yeah, that sounds balanced.
Let me help you.
Now, obviously, with background vocals like this, any kind of ambience behind them can be cool. I'm going to try the big plate reverb. I think it's going to be too much, but I love this thing. So it's a big plate with like a 6-second tail on it. It can be really, really cool.
You're not alone.
Maybe a little too long of a tail for a song like this. Let's try the spring. We've got the guitar going there. What about this? Yeah, that feels good. So the spring is just bright. It's a brighter reverb. It doesn't sound boingy like a typical spring reverb on an amp, and it's nice and wide, so I kind of like that a lot.
You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone.
Still feels like some mid-range is annoying me.
You're not alone.
So it's not uncommon for me to jump in and do like a big wide EQ like this, just to really thin it out to where there's a little bit of low mid action down here, but we're mostly talking about hearing some sparkly top end and a lot of the mid-range cut because multiple vocals will build up there. So we've gone too far. It's too thin now. So let's bring some of these back. Okay, that feels pretty good. We could even maybe do a delay on them, but that's getting a little too crazy, I think, for a song like this. And these are singing along with the lead vocal, and there's 3 lead vocals there, which is turned down, so you can't hear it, so that didn't work at all.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
I love the contrast of the wide panned, hard left and right background vocals thin to this thick lead vocal up the middle, which leads us to it's time to work on the lead vocal. So let's look really quickly at what's going on. So all my lead vocals are in yellow, and they're all going to the same bus, and it's going to stay that way until I need to change it. But I like the idea, if it's a good enough processing for the one lead vocal, then it makes sense for the double and everything else. And so the main loudest lead vocal is driving that processing, driving the compressor that's there, and then going from there. So
The first clear thought.
we might need to EQ those separately.
Given the first clear thought,
Yeah.
I'm suicidal. You're not the only one.
So I love doubled vocals, tripled vocals. It just adds this kind of thickness and clarity and means probably less effects. I may try to do slapback delay, but let's just go to this final chorus and let's just listen and see what we need to do.
You're not alone. Your experience the same. Let me help you. The feel with this pain.
For the time being, I'm going to turn down the background vocals just so I'm just listening to the lead vocals for a minute, and then I'll blend them back in once I'm done.
You're not alone. Your experience the same. Let me help you. The feel with this pain. Time changes as we face our words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
First thing we need to decide is, do we need all three? I love double guitar or doubled doubled lead vocal, but do we need tripled? So here's the first one.
You're not alone.
Here's the first and second.
You're not alone.
Love that. Here's what the third one sounds like by itself.
You're not alone.
I'm not in, oh, my computer's just beeping everywhere. I'm not entirely sure that that's necessary.
You're not alone. We all experience the same.
The idea is that third one only comes in on the choruses. I'm going to save that. Ooh, you know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. This is going to be fun. I'm going to distort that one. That one's just going to be disgusting and distorted and blended on top of the other ones, and we're going to do that right now. So here's that third vocal here.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again.
I love that. Let me put some EQ after it just so this stays thin, doesn't have any thickness to it. I like that a lot.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you.
He's already singing with some grit in his voice, but this just adds an extra level that I love. I'm going to keep that, at least for now. Okay, so now I like...
You're not alone.
I like that. Now, let's go in, and there's a little bit with the vocal. Let's roll off some low end real quick and then go from there.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you.
So part of me thinks I should EQ first. There's some mid-range build-up there that I don't love, but I'm going to try just compressing it first. And what compressor do I want to use? I really liked this one on vocal. So we're going to see how that works. It's really aggressive and cool. So let's just start twisting knobs and see what happens. Again, we're just compressing the vocal. I'm going to try to EQ it after compression. I like the way just a raw vocal going into a compressor sounds sometimes. Let's see what that works. Let's see if that works.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone.
So I can't make this compressor sound bad. You may not like that sound, but I love it. It's just aggressive. It's in your face. It's a little bit louder. It may be too much. It may be so much compression that it's not doing much compression, but let's just turn it on and off and see.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we...
I just like how aggressive it is. So the one thing I don't know a lot, this recovery is essentially the release time, 100, 400, 800, 1500 milliseconds, and this is like an automatic setting. And the way I've looked into it, I think this is based off a Neve compressor, is get the compression like you want it on the front end, the attack time and the amount of compression, and then switch over here to these two and just see which one sounds better. I thought this one sounded cool. The release felt right. I didn't hear as much room sound in the release because you can hear the room. When you compress this much, you can hear the room in which it was recorded. Not always a bad thing, especially if the release time is right.
You're not alone. We all experience the same.
So that feels like it's releasing fairly quickly in a way that helps us out. Or maybe it's slowly. I don't even know. That sounds good to me. I'm happy. So tone-wise, we need to do some work here. There's a lot of build-up. I just know this is going to mess with the mix. So let me do some tone work in solo, then we'll go in and listen to it with a mix.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
So I love this. It took some mid-range out at 700. That's where a lot of the buildup is here. Took away some 220, a little bit of rumble there, and then boosted around 5K, which gave it some of that clarity that I like back.
You're not alone.
Feels aggressive, but we've still kind of left it alone to where it still just feels like a rock song. One thing is there is some sibilance. Listen to the S's and T's with all that compression.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as
Time changes feels a little loud. If that becomes a problem in the mix, I'll go back and deal with it with a de-esser of some sort. I'm actually not, it's not as bad as I thought it was upon second listen. So let's drop it out and listen to how this section sounds with the full band. I mean, again, doing that in solo is somewhat irrelevant. I just wanted you to hear the changes I was making. Now let's drop it in and see if it's working.
you're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone.
So I don't love the way the doubled vocals are working. So I'm going to bring one of them down a little bit. So the second one down, maybe the first one up a little bit.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you deal with this pain.
And I'm a little distracted here, but I'm going to go ahead and fix these two. This is the low vocal part. They just need a basic EQ so they're not too muddy. Let's listen to those really quick. Whoops.
Time changes. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again.
Okay, that feels...
Time changes as we face our own worst.
Of course, can't hear it. Let me put it in with all the vocals.
Time changes as we face our own worst.
Let's turn up just the output of that compressor a little, or that EQ a little bit.
Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. Time changes as we...
Okay, now I'm hearing all that sibilance. We're clipping our main bus. We're just starting to get into craziness here. Let me do this. Let me put a compressor in the first of the chain of my vocal chain. And I'm going to set this up as a de-esser. I've got a preset that I've saved. Fast attack, quick release, listening to everything above 6K. That's what it's listening to. That's what it's compressing based off of. It's still compressing the entire signal, though.
Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone.
I'm going to try it after.
Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone.
So this is one of those things on lead vocals, especially when you're going crazy compression.
Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
I'm not loving the sound that I'm getting overall. Could be the compression. I think it could be just some need for some surgical EQ after. This is getting dangerously close to too many plugins at this point with 3. But I want to try this real quick and see if I can make it sit a little better.
Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one.
All right, guess what, folks? I'm ditching this whole thing. I just feel like I have gone too far. I don't like the overcompression. I liked it at first. Now I'm trying to do so many things just to fix it. So I'm going to just save what I got here. Call this take 1. I'm going to route all my vocals to a new bus. And we're going to just try this again. They're going to go to take this vocal now. And I'm just going to turn this one down. So I just didn't love a lot of that. I liked the slapback delay I actually like a lot. But that extra heavy compression just did not feel right. I like that compressor. I think I just went too far, which, it happens. So I'm going to bring it over and we're going to start again, this time more in context with everything else.
Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
Let's try EQing it first. We'll switch the order here. We'll do some EQ before we compress.
Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
See, that already feels better to me.
Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
I'll bring that de-esser over.
Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone.
I need an EQ for that. There's a mid-range thing, upper mid-range thing that's annoying.
Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. Time changes as we face our own words, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. You're not alone. We all experience the same. face our worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
All right, I'm think I'm liking it. Let me just let's listen back to like a first verse and just see how we feel here.
Given the first clear thought, I'm suicidal. Loss after loss, I don't know what to do.
One thing, I don't like the slap back delay all the time. I'm gonna put the slap on that distorted vocal, just on that one, so that when that one is singing, there's slap back. So essentially automating it to where we only have slap back on the distorted vocal in the choruses, but not here.
Given the first clear thought, I'm suicidal. Loss after loss, I don't know what to do. Day after day, I try to find my way in line. The harder I try, I swear the harder I fall. You're not the only one. You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you. Help me deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. How can this be true? How could people have thought this through? Sounds like utter bull. I'll just lay down and die. Hopeless it may be. Help me fight and break through me. As lost as I have been, I will rise into the sky. You're not the only one. You're not alone. We'll experience the same. Let me help you. Help me deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. You're not alone. You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you. Help me deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain. You're not the only one. 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 You're not the only one.
That feels pretty good. Not perfect, but This is one of those songs where I feel like the vocal needs to sit. So you may have seen me turn it down in a few spots where it was on top of the mix too much, more like a pop song. It feels like a more vocal kind of sitting in the mix song than it does vocal super out on top, which I think is where I landed for this last chorus.
We all experience the same. Let me help you. Help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
So I think I'm pretty happy with that. The vocal still feels a little dull, and I'm not sure what to do about it, but I've reached that point. I know myself well enough to know any more work I do on this right now without taking a break is not going to end super well, and it's not bad, but I think if I keep going, I'm going to just jack things up some more. So this is our vocal tone. We'll end the video here.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you. Help you deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our own worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone.
Well, there you go. That actually fixed what I was hearing. I just turned down 360 a little more and turned down below 220. There was just a lot of kind of low mid-range build up there that I wasn't loving. I think we actually just fixed it.
You're not alone. We all experience the same. Let me help you. Help deal with this pain. Time changes as we face our worst, but we learn to rise again. You're not alone. We will claim our own terrain.
That feels a lot better. I was going for not a super clear vocal, right? Something that kind of felt gritty. We've got the distortion in there. And I want it to be heard without sitting on top of the mix. And I felt like I had to keep pulling it back in the mix because that low mid-range, that was too much. Going in and doing that EQ we just did actually fixed all those problems pretty much instantly, which is super, super cool. And I wasn't even intending to do it. So that's the end of this video. In the next video, what I'll do is come back and kind of take a step back and say, okay, we've kind of gone through every piece of the mix. Now, what do we do from here? How do we get from here to finished? Is there any sort of a process involved? The answer is yes, and I'll show that to you in the next video. In the meantime, if you haven't started your mix, you can just go get the tracks for free over at homestudiocorner.com/MT. Enter your email address. I'll send you the tracks, and you can mix this sucker right along with me. All right, that's it for now. See you in the next video. Later.